Hi everyone, it's time for a new cooking video. It's my birthday and a good friend of mine bought me a waffle maker for my birthday. So I'm going to make some waffles. I'm going to make cheddar bacon waffles today. So I've mixed in 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 3/4 a cup of sugar, 1 tablespoon baking powder, and a teaspoon of salt. So I'm just going to mix that all together and set it aside, and then I'm going to do the wet ingredients. When mixing up your dry ingredients, a lot of recipes say you can use the sifter. I just use my whisk. It's perfectly fine. I just whisk it all together and it mixes it up pretty good. So I'm going to set that aside and then I'm going to work on the wet ingredient. Okay, so the recipe calls for 3 eggs separated. So how I like to separate the eggs is how I was taught the old school way. Just to crack the egg. And you just kind of the egg in between the shell. Just keep moving it back and forth. Use the shell to cut off the egg, and you put the yolk in one bowl. Do that again. Keep going back and forth. Gently do it. You got to be careful not to get any of the yolk in the sauce, mixed in with the whites, because you're going to whip the whites later, and you don't want to get any yolk in there that won't make it easy to whip. So there, I've separated my 3 eggs. Okay, so to my bowl of eggs, 3 separated egg yolks, and 1.5 cups milk. I'm going to add 1 cup of melted unsalted butter. And I'm just going to whisk that together. And once that's whisked together, I'm going to set that aside. And then I'm going to use my electric mixer and whip together the egg whites. That's whisked together. I'm going to set that aside, and then I'm going to beat my egg whites. I'm going to beat my egg whites together. So I whipped my egg whites until they were soft peaks. And you can tell with the soft peaks because when you lift up the batters with your beaters, the peaks fall back down. So I'm just going to clear off the beaters a bit. So now the next step is to mix everything together, along with a cup and a half of grated cheddar cheese, 3 chopped scallions, or green onions as I call them, and 6 slices of cooked crumbled bacon. So my bacon is currently in the oven right now, and when that's done, I'm going to mix everything together. Okay, so bacon is ready. So I'm just going to put it on a plate with a paper towel to collect off some of the grease. And then when it's cooled down, I'm going to chop it up. So when that's cooled down, I'm going to chop it up. And what I like to do is I like to save the bacon grease for later, because I'm trying to do keto, and it's great to save the bacon grease because then you can use it later to fry up things instead of using butter and oil. Bacon grease is great, gives good flavor to your food. So once the bacon's cooled down, I'll chop it up and then I'll start mixing everything together. Okay, next step is to heat up the waffle iron. Before you plug it in and turn it on, you're supposed to season both sides with oil just to make sure it's non-stick. And of course I forgot to do that. So I had some coconut oil spray that I use for non-stick, so I just sprayed a bit of that on. So now it's just heating up and ready to go, and I'm going to mix everything together and start cooking the waffles. So we start off mixing the egg, butter, and milk. Oh, jeez. Sorry, I made a splash here. The butter kind of got cooled down and kind of splashed. So whisk that in. Spoon to finish the rest of this. Let this break. I just pour it a bit at a time. I don't pour the whole thing in because you never know. Sometimes you have a recipe, but sometimes the proportions are not quite right. And then you end up getting either it way too wet or way too dry. So that's why I just like to pour a bit in at a time. And I think I could pour the rest in. That's good. I find this a little thick. I might pour just a tiny bit of milk in just to make it a bit more liquidy, because the cheese and the bacon and the egg whites are going to make it a little bit more solid. I'm just going to add a bit of milk. Better. Now the next step is to fold in the egg whites. So you fold, you just flip it over like that, that's folding it in. Don't stir too aggressively. Just flip it over like this. If you stir too aggressively, it'll break the egg whites. And you need to have that airy, fluffy consistency for the waffles. Otherwise, they'll be too dense, too flat, they won't rise properly. And then you'll have a mess in your waffle iron. Folding it like this until it's well incorporated. Then you add green onions or scallions, the fresh chopped bacon, and about a cup of fresh shredded cheese. I like to buy just the bricks of cheese and shred my own. I don't usually like to buy the bags of shredded cheese. So again, you just fold this in till it's well mixed up. And you could probably add some seasonings if you want. A bit of paprika would be okay. Some parsley, maybe some nutmeg, that would probably be good. But I wouldn't really add too much else. Certainly not any pepper. That would not be good. Okay, so these are pretty well incorporated. I think I like the consistency of that. So I'm going to start ladling it into the waffle iron. Okay, so the lights are on, so that should be hot enough. Let me turn it up a bit, just to make sure it's hot enough. So now I'm just waiting for the green light to come on to indicate that it's hot enough. I just turned up the heat a bit because I didn't find it too hot. And with anything like this, with pancakes, waffles, anything like that, you really have to make sure it's hot, otherwise it will stick. So I will come back when it's perfectly hot and we'll start making the waffles. Okay, so the green light came on, so I think it's hot enough. Oh yeah, it does feel hot enough for sure. So I'm gonna start labeling in some of the waffle mix. Here it's sizzling, it's hot, way hot enough. Okay, let that sit for a minute and see what happens. Okay, and there is the finished product. A nice waffle. Now I'm just going to see how I can get it out of here. And just note that sometimes when doing these things, there is some spillage out of the other side, out of the sides of the lid. So I just push down the lid and cut off the edges that spilled out of the waffle iron. This could be in here probably for another minute or so to make it a little bit more crispy. It's kind of wobbly right now, so I think I'll leave it in there for another minute, make it a little bit more crisper. But that's it. That's how you make bacon cheddar waffles.